This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
An all-new season of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Mom Talk has just been blowing up.
Whitney and Jen are on Dancing with the Stars.
Taylor is a bachelorette.
Saying that out loud is crazy. Like, that is huge.
But all the cool opportunities could pull us apart.
It's causing issues in everyone's marriage.
My whole world is falling apart right now. It's chaos.
Watch the Hulu original series, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today I want to talk about how you show up daily and whether it's building or depleting your quality of life. Because I know that for many of you listening, productivity isn't the issue. You know how to get things done. You've built a life that looks successful through managing complexity, handling competing priorities, and delivering consistently. But here's what I've been thinking about lately. There's a pattern I keep noticing. And it's that you can have successful days and still lose quality of life. Meaning your days can look productive on paper, meetings attended, decisions made, tasks completed, check, check, check. But internally, life can feel depleting. Not because you're doing life wrong, but because somewhere along the way, you started optimizing for output instead of asking whether your days are actually building the quality of life you want. It's felt in the way your days feel managed instead of lived. The way you move from one thing to the next without ever feeling settled, like you're on autopilot, like driving your car from point A to point B, so distracted that by the time you arrive at your destination, you don't even remember the drive. The way your life feels reactive, fragmented, never grounded. And maybe you told yourself that that's just how it is, that if your days are productive, your life must be on track. But here's what I want you to think about. What if quality of life isn't built in the big moments, but in how you experience your days? What if the rhythm of your days matters more than the output of your days? Not whether you're achieving enough, but whether your daily rhythms are creating quality of life or eroding it, and whether you're living your days or just managing them. You see, when you're someone who knows how to have a productive day, the metrics are clear, right? Meetings get handled, your decisions are being made, your inbox is managed, and your tasks are completed. You know how to look at your day and feel like you've been productive and accomplished what you set out to do. And that feels like proof that life is working. Until one day you notice a realization that you can have good days, like really good days, and still feel like your life isn't working. Where your days are productive, but your life feels fragmented. Where your days feel full, but your life feels reactive. Where everything looks successful on paper, but your life never feels settled. And you tell yourself, this is life, that if things feel challenging right now, that this too shall pass. That once you get through this season, things will calm down. That if your days are productive, eventually your life will catch up. But somewhere underneath all of that, you start noticing that good days aren't building a good life. And daily wins aren't translating into quality of life. Because although you're optimizing each day for output, your life as a whole feels unsustainable. And here's the thing. Nothing looks broken from the outside looking in because you're still productive. You're delivering, you're handling what needs handling. But when you stop to take stock and measure your life by the quality of your days, internally, you're achieving constantly, but you're never experiencing life. You're moving through life, but you're never feeling grounded in it. You're productive day after day, but quality of life is eroding underneath it all. And you start wondering if your days are this good productivity-wise, why doesn't your life feel good? You see, you can have successful days and still lose quality of life. You can be productive every single day and still feel depleted. You can achieve constantly and never feel settled. Again, everything can look good on paper, but your life doesn't feel good to live. And that's when you start to wonder, if my days look this successful, why does my life feel so unsustainable? That's why if your days are feeling productive, but your life feels unsustainable, and if you're accomplishing everything on your list, but you're still left feeling like something's off, the question isn't whether you're capable of handling it all. It becomes more about, are you confusing productivity with a good life? Because here's what I've noticed: the disconnect reveals itself gradually in the way your days start to feel managed instead of lived, in the way you're always moving to the next thing without ever feeling settled, in the way you optimize for output, the quality of life erodes. And because you've been measuring life by how much you accomplish, how full your calendar is, and how productive each day looks on paper, productivity becomes the proof that life is working. Until one day you start to notice that productive days and quality of life aren't the same thing. They're not lining up the way you had imagined they would. That's the first lens we're going to look through today. What becomes visible when you recognize that your days can look successful on paper while your life feels unsustainable. Because when you optimize every day for output without protecting your quality of life, the cost doesn't just show up in how tired you feel at the end of your week. It shows up in how you experience your life. Because your days can feel full, but your life can still feel reactive. Your days can feel accomplished. Everything that you set out to do gets done, but your life never feels fully grounded. You can be busy, but your life can feel fragmented, like you're always playing catch up, never fully settled. And even if you are in a season of life where there is a little bit more on your plate, you can tell yourself this is temporary, that once you get through this season, things will calm down, that again, this too shall pass. But the truth is, optimizing for daily productivity without intentionally building quality of life into the framework costs you more than you realize. That's the second lens that we're going to explore: what it actually costs you when you measure life by how productive you are instead of asking whether your days are building the life that you actually want to live. And then there's the third lens, the one that can change how you think about quality of life and how you're living your days entirely. Because productive days don't guarantee a good life, but intentional days, days where you build quality of life inside of it instead of just focusing on output, can transform everything. Because when you shift from optimizing for productivity to building for quality of life, your days don't become less productive, they become more sustainable. You're not just accomplishing, you're experiencing. You're not just managing, you're living. You stop measuring life by what you get done, and you start building a life that feels as good as your days look on paper. And really, that's what we're exploring today. What becomes possible when you stop confusing productive days with a quality life, and you start building days that create the life you actually want to live. Now, you might be thinking that if my days are productive, my life should be on track, right? But here's what I want you to consider. When you allow that belief that productivity means being on track, and you allow that belief to take root, it begins to shape how you measure whether life is working. Because when you've built a life through being productive, through managing full calendars, through delivering on commitments, through proving that you can handle competing priorities and still get things done, and that productivity has been rewarded, where you're recognized for being able to handle what others couldn't, where opportunities opened up for you because you delivered consistently, and where advancement followed because you proved you could manage complexity without dropping the ball. When your days feel full, when they require constant focus, and when rest starts to feel like wasted time, you start telling yourself that that's just what life requires of you. That if your days are productive, your life's on track. And so you start measuring life by how productive you are, not by how you're experiencing it, not by whether you feel grounded or settled, not by the quality of life that you're building, but by how much you accomplish. Believing that the busier your day is, the more purposeful your life must be. The more you get done, the more progress you're making, and that the fuller your calendar, the more on track you are. And that belief gets reinforced everywhere. In the praise for productivity, the way busy becomes a status symbol, and the narrative that the only way to have a daily win is through what you accomplish, as if presence, rest, or simply living well don't count. In the expectation that if you want a successful life, you need to optimize every single minute of every single hour of every single day for output. And so you normalize constant motion. and treat rest as something you'll do once everything's handled, which means you rarely allow for it. You equate productivity with progress because that's what's been modeled, praised, and rewarded. And over time, that becomes the standard you measure yourself against. Did I have a productive day? Did I get everything done? Did I maximize today's output? But here's what I want you to understand. Productive days don't equal quality of life because maybe your days are productive and everything on your calendar and your to-do list gets handled. You can still feel fragmented, reactive, and never settled. Maybe your days are full where you're accomplishing constantly, but when you're achieving without experiencing life and constantly moving without being grounded, and you're measuring the success of your life by how productive you are, not by how you feel, not by whether life is good to live, but solely by what you got done. If you don't realize this, then one day you're going to wake up and realize that good days don't guarantee a good life. And by the time you notice this, the pattern's already been set because now your days have been set up to optimize for output and your life gets measured by daily achievement, by what gets checked off the list. And you're left wondering why your days look so successful, but your life feels so off, so disconnected. You see, the belief that productive days equal a life on track is why you can accomplish constantly and still feel depleted. It's why your days feel managed instead of lived. It's why you're always moving to the next thing without ever feeling fully settled in. Because this belief teaches you to measure life by daily output, by what you're producing in them instead of how you're experiencing your days. Let me say this another way. When every day is focused on optimizing productivity, measuring life by how much you get done, not by how good life feels, and when you treat downtime as wasted time instead of an essential piece of the puzzle, that's a pattern of operating from output as your only compass without questioning it. Because productivity can create successful days on paper, provided those tasks, of course, move the needle towards what you're building. But intentional days, days where you build quality of life into the framework of not just output, are what create a sustainable life. Daily experience matters more than daily output. How your day feels matters more than how it looks on paper, because what I've found is that quality of life isn't built by optimizing every day for productivity only. It's built by asking whether what you're doing with your days is creating the life you actually want. So once you understand that productivity doesn't guarantee quality of life or that it doesn't guarantee that your life's on track, it becomes easier to notice what living from that belief has been costing you, because beliefs like this, they don't announce their cost up front. They reveal it slowly over time. And that's why you don't usually see what it's been taking from you until the pattern's already been set and it's in place. Which is why, from the outside looking in, things often look fine because you're still productive, you're getting things handled, there's no obvious signal that anything's off. But it's why the cost takes so long to notice. You see, when you're measuring life by how productive you are, and you don't notice what's happening because you're so busy optimizing for output and managing the next thing, quality of life, the very thing that your productive days are supposed to be building, starts to erode in the way you're always moving to the next thing without feeling like, settled into it, in the way your life feels reactive, like you're constantly responding to what's in front of you instead of grounded in what matters, feeling like your days are managing you. And when productivity becomes your measuring stick, you tell yourself that this is normal, that if your days are this productive, feeling fragmented is just part of the deal. But here's what I hope you're starting to notice. When you optimize for daily output without protecting quality of life, the cost doesn't just show up in how tired you may feel at the end of your week, right? It shows up in how you're experiencing life. It shows up in the way you're constantly moving, but you're never grounded. It's what it's costing you to produce at this high level where you're always optimizing and never measuring the cost, and not just the obvious cost of time. Because a lot of people think it's time. It's not just time. The internal costs that usually go unnoticed. And most times they never get tracked by the way that your days feel full, but your life feels empty, by the way you finish a full day of work, but you can't name a single moment in your day that felt good. Like you're moving through the motions without actually being present for it or actually experiencing any of it. And when you keep going because you've learned that productivity equals progress and rest can wait, you optimize today, you fill tomorrow, and you manage the overwhelm the best that you can because you've normalized operating at capacity without questioning whether it's sustainable. Listen, that constant optimization, that internal work of staying productive, staying on top of it at all times, staying capable without pause, that's what depletes quality of life. Maybe not all at once, but gradually over time. Because the ease that used to exist in your days starts getting replaced by a constant hum of what's next. Your life stops feeling settled and you start feeling like you're always playing catch up. You're productive day after day, but quality of life is eroding. And even when you can point to a single day and say, well, that was a productive day, when you step back and you look at your life as a whole, it doesn't feel good. It feels reactive, fragmented, never settled. Like life's managing you instead of you living and enjoying being alive. Like you're achieving constantly, but never fully experiencing what you're building. Like your days are successful on paper, but your life feels unsustainable. And because this pattern's so familiar, it really gets questioned because productivity feels purposeful. Being busy feels like progress, and full days feel like proof that life's working. So even though your days are productive, your calendar's full, your output's high, quality of life doesn't automatically come with it. And the reason for that is that quality of life isn't created by optimizing every day for output. It's created by asking whether your days are building the life you actually want to live or whether they're just filling time. You see, when daily productivity becomes the only measure of whether life is good, that everything's on track, quality of life slowly starts taking a back seat. And that's why you stay busy managing what's next instead of experiencing what's now. That's the true cost. Not that you can't handle being productive, but that productivity has been leading when intentional living should be. And over time, that teaches you to measure life by output instead of experience. And understand this. When you live this way with the idea of productivity being the measuring stick, you're doing more internal work than you realize just to keep life feeling contained. And when that happens, quality of life becomes harder to access. Because when daily productivity becomes the only measure of whether life's on track, your days can look successful on paper while your life feels unsustainable. And that's what happens when you optimize for output without protecting what you're building, the quality of life that you're striving for. When you can see what measuring life by daily productivity has been costing you, that's when things can shift because now you're finally seeing a pattern for what it is. And that recognition, that moment of seeing, creates space and you can move from how do I make today more productive to is what I'm doing today building the life I actually want. You see, when you catch yourself measuring life by how productive you were in your day instead of asking whether your days are actually building a quality of life that you're building towards, this is the opportunity for you to, in the moments where you catch yourself thinking today was productive, so life must be on track, this is the opportunity for you to pause instead of just moving straight to your to-do list. It becomes a chance for you to recognize that you've been equating a good life with productive days, that you've been measuring life by daily output instead of daily experience, that you've been optimizing for what you accomplish instead of how you actually live. And when you take notice of that, once you start to recognize that productive days and quality of life aren't the same thing, then you start to notice the moments before you default optimizing for output, before you fill every hour of your day without asking whether it's building the life you want. And before you tell yourself that once you get through this week, you'll focus on quality of life. And instead of automatically optimizing for productivity and instead of leaning on your old way of thinking of how do I make today productive, what else needs to get done, you shift to is today building the quality of life I want? Am I living this day or am I just managing it or is life managing me? And if quality of life is important to me, what would it feel like to actually experience this day instead of just optimizing for it? And when you can do that, that's when you start to see the difference between days that look successful on paper and days that are successful on paper and that also build quality of life. Because when daily productivity is your only measuring stick, when output's all that matters, life requires constant motion, asking you to stay busy, demanding that you optimize every single day and treat rest as wasted time, demanding that you measure your life by what you accomplish, not by how you experience it. But when quality of life becomes part of how you design your days, when you include it from the very beginning, then you move through your days and quality of life moves with you. Your days don't feel managed anymore. They feel lived. You're not just reacting to what's in front of you and checking off another to-do item. You're experiencing life and becoming more grounded in what matters. And your nervous system starts to feel supported because your days are designed to build quality of life, not sacrifice it for output. You see, when quality of life's part of the equation, You can still be productive, you can still accomplish, but your life stops feeling reactive and fragmented, and you're present in what you're building instead of just managing it. Because intentional days don't make you less productive, they make your life sustainable. They're what allow you to achieve without depleting yourself. They're what create quality of life instead of eroding it. And here's why that's so important. When you start to experience what it feels like to build days that create a life that you want to live instead of just output, you start to see your days themselves differently because life starts being measured by how productive each day is. And it starts being measured by whether your days are building the life you actually want to live. Where the belief that if my days are productive, my life's on track reveals itself as incomplete. And you recognize that quality of life isn't built by optimizing every day for output. It's built by asking whether your days are creating the life you actually want. You see, optimizing asks, what needs to get done today? How can I maximize output? What else can I fit in? But intentional living asks, is today building quality of life? Am I present in this day or am I just managing it? Does this day reflect the life I actually want to live? Where optimizing measures life by daily productivity and treats rest as wasted time, intentional living measures life by daily experience and treats presence as essential. Where optimizing creates managed days that feel reactive, intentional living creates lived days that feel grounded. And quality of life redefines your days as something you live, not just manage. Protecting presence, experiencing life while you're achieving, not treating it as something you'll get to later. And it allows you to build a life that feels sustainable, not just successful on paper. When you're present instead of just productive, when quality of life isn't something you're working towards, but what your days are actively building, life doesn't just look successful, it feels sustainable. It feels good. And your days don't feel fragmented anymore. They feel grounded because you're not reacting to what's in front of you. You're present in what you're creating. You're not measuring life by what you accomplish in a day. You're experiencing the life you're building. And when you shift from productive days to quality days, you realize that the version of life you've been managing was never the only option, that there's another way that builds quality of life instead of erodes it, that creates presence instead of just productivity, and that allows you to live your days, not just manage them. And that way is living intentionally, and quality of life follows. So let's take a minute and just sit with what we've uncovered today. I want you to just sit with what's surfacing for you, not to analyze or fix it, but I want you to just notice what's being revealed. Because as an example, for myself, when I look at how I'm actually moving through my days, one of the things I've really started to lean into is, am I measuring life by what I get accomplished every day or by how I am experiencing it? And one of the things that was revealed to me is that I had to understand what my triggers are. And one of them being the idea of time track. That's a trigger for me. And let me tell you why. When I was tracking my tasks by time, meaning how much time it would take to do something, I didn't always feel like I had an accurate time count. And most times I would look at what I accomplished and feel like I didn't do much, which would take me down that road of self doubt where I would beat myself up and start thinking and believing that I was wasting a lot of time doing very little and not even realizing that some of the tasks I had were time consuming. You know what I mean? And so to deal with that trigger, I started instead to task track, meaning instead of time tracking, I track the tasks that are on my list. And it feels better. It feels good within my nervous system to celebrate when something's complete rather than focusing on how much time it took to do. I've also started paying attention to the moments when I equate a good life with productive days, like when I catch myself thinking that because today was busy, that my life must be on track. Or when I measure progress by what I got done without factoring in how I feel about what I did and how I experienced my day. Or if I treat quality of life as something I'll prioritize only once everything else is completed. Before, I would get down on myself. But now, I don't make it wrong that my thoughts may be going down the rabbit hole again. I've just learned to notice my thoughts and to get curious about why I'm thinking that way, why I'm feeling that way. And most times when this happens, it's because I've been measuring my life by daily output or because I got caught up in how other people are thriving and comparing myself, which I understand is a no-no because it doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form to do that because we're all on our own individual journeys through life. But I have come to realize that when I start going down the rabbit hole again, it's because I've veered off track and started focusing on what others are doing instead of focusing on what I'm doing and asking whether my days are building the quality of life that I actually want to live. Even when I think about yesterday or even this past week, I don't just evaluate whether it was productive anymore. I've learned to ask myself, was I present or was I just moving through it? Did I feel grounded or reactive? Did quality of life exist alongside my productivity or did I sacrifice presence for output? And what I'm noticing is that my nervous system knows the difference because I feel it first. A recognition of knowing, I recognize there's like this inner knowing that I have where I realize whether I'm intentionally building a quality life or if my habits are eroding it, whether I'm living my days or if life's managing me. And with that awareness, with that recognition that if productivity has been my only way of measuring and I feel fragmented, reactive, and settled, with that knowing, I can ask myself, what has optimizing for output been costing me? Not outwardly, but internally, because the internal cost, the way my life feels reactive while my days look productive, the way I'm achieving constantly, but never experiencing what I'm building, which honestly robs me of joy, right? The way presence has become something I'll get to later instead of something essential for now. I don't rush past that anymore like I used to. And I let myself see what I've been normalizing, what I've been accepting without questioning, what I've been treating as a necessary price of a productive life. And then I sit with this final question. What would change if I prioritized quality of life over daily output, not someday, but starting now? Because awareness creates space to see the pattern, space to recognize what it's been costing, and space to imagine another way. Which is why when I think about productive days and quality of life, it's become clear to me just how much of the experience of life happens internally and how easy it is to confuse a full calendar with a full life. You see, quality of life doesn't just live in accomplishments or milestones. It lives in your body, in your mind, in the moments where you feel grounded, present, and alive, not just productive. And what I've come to recognize is that when you're handling competing priorities, it can often feel like there isn't time or space to acknowledge what that requires internally, how much energy it's taking to optimize every single day for output without protecting quality of life. How your life can feel fragmented and reactive when your days look successful on paper, and how normal it becomes to measure life by daily productivity instead of asking whether your days are building the life you actually want. This has had me thinking deeply about what it would be like to have a space, not just for advice or strategies, but for the experience itself to be understood where optimizing for output at the expense of quality of life isn't treated as normal, but as something worth questioning, where you could explore what it means to build days that create quality of life and know that others are right there with you in the building and learning and growing together, which is a big part of the reason why I want to create the Yes Reset community, the community I want to build for women in the legal profession. Because when we think about what we uncovered today, how quality of life gets sacrificed when daily output becomes the only measure of a good life, and how being intentional about how you spend your days can transform everything. This is the kind of conversation that I believe deserves a space like the one I want to build. And as I've shared many times before in this podcast, I've been in the legal industry for over 4 decades now, and I know what it's like to work in professional environments where quality of life is part of the conversation, but it's not really honored. And I believe these corporate spaces would be fundamentally better if we actually made room for these conversations around not only talking about quality of life, but how to achieve it while in the work environment as well as outside of work. And that's why right now I'm in the market research stage to gauge what you want and if it's even something that you would want me to build, where we could explore conversations like the ones that we talked about today around quality of life and intentional living, where you don't have to feel like you're alone navigating the internal experience of sustaining productivity all while sacrificing the life that you're building, where quality of life isn't something you prioritize after everything else is handled, but something that's treated as foundational from the very beginning. I want this to be a space that doesn't just rush you to solutions, but one that's built around creating room to notice what's actually happening and what's possible for you when you're not carrying the weight of what you do, of what you're experiencing alone. So the community is not open yet because, like I said, I'm still in the market research stage. I want to build it intentionally for the women it's meant to support, which means I don't want to guess what you need. I actually want to know what you think and believe that you need. I want to know how you experience responsibility, what sustaining productivity actually feels like for you. And I want to know what you would want a space like this to hold. So if you're listening and you're thinking that this is something you could see yourself being a part of and you're interested in exploring more, you want to be a part of building it with me, then you can apply through the link in the show notes to join the waitlist, share what you'd want a space like this to hold so that I can build it in a way that actually reflects how you think, decide, and how you carry responsibility, and that it has the kind of support you'd like to see inside the container. And we can build this together. But If you have questions, you need more information about what I'm building, you're not quite sure yet, please reach out to me by email, which you'll find in the show notes, and we can talk this through, what you're thinking, answer any questions you have, and we can see if this is something that you would like to be a part of. So be sure to check the show notes. You know, as women, a lot of the time we're so used to measuring our lives by how productive our days are, by how much we can accomplish, by how full our calendars are, that we often forget to ask if how we're filling our days is actually building the life that we actually want, or if we're just trying to measure up to what the external world says quality of life is supposed to look like. And what I've come to understand is that a life that feels sustainable isn't built only through productivity or optimization or managing what's in front of you. It's built through being intentional. Days that prioritize presence, not just output. Days that create quality of life, not erode it. Days that feel lived, not just managed. Because when your days are designed to build quality of life, life doesn't feel reactive. It doesn't ask you to optimize every hour to prove that what you're doing is working. It doesn't measure your progress only by what you've accomplished. It simply feels grounded because it's being built on a foundation of presence that's not being sacrificed for productivity. And I think that's what most of us want and what we're ready for. We want to experience every day in a way that builds quality of life instead of erodes it. Because, like I've said, productive days don't guarantee a good life. Intentional living does. And quality of life isn't what you get to once everything's been handled and everything has lined up. When you learn to prioritize presence over productivity and you start experiencing your days instead of just getting managed by them, when you build quality of life into every day, that, my friend, that's quality of life in action. Thanks for spending time with me today. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number, save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
Have you ever wondered what actually happens in Congress every day? Stay informed on Capitol Hill's daily happenings with a concise, factual summary of the Senate and House of Representatives' activities from the previous session, free from bias, on the Congressional Record Daily Digest podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and discover the process from the heart of U.S. politics. The Congressional Record Daily Digest, an Electricast production.
Electricast. Electricast.